Here's the thing no one tells you about working in the deep web. You never really know who you're dealing with. You can run all the OPSEC protocols you want, burner VMs, layered proxies, encrypted mailboxes, custom kernels, but sooner or later, someone shows up with an offer that slips past every defense you think you have. That's exactly what happened the night a client paid me in crypto before I even agreed to take the job. And if you think that sounds like a gift, trust me, nothing on the deep web comes free, especially not what this person actually wanted from me. I remember staring at the wallet transfer like it was some kind of glitch. The payment hit instantly. No escrow, no negotiation, no back and forth chatter. Just a message in my secure inbox. Payment sent. Instructions follow once you confirm. It was more than I usually charged, the kind of sum that makes even a seasoned operator pause for a second. Enough to cover 3 months of living expenses, upgrades to my rig, new security tools, and maybe even those thermal cameras I'd been eyeing for my physical perimeter. It was the kind of payment clients only send when they either trust you completely or need you for something they can't risk explaining up front. My first instinct was to ignore it. Too clean, too fast, too confident. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially in my line of work. It's the same curiosity that pushed me into the deep web in the first place. Past the forums, past the marketplaces, past the hidden directories that only show their true purpose if you know where to look. I've always been the type who wants to know what's behind the locked door, even when every instinct says don't turn the handle. So I answered. Just one encrypted line. Payment received. What's the job? The reply came 3 minutes later. Not instantly. Not after a random delay. It was deliberate. Timed. Almost like the sender wanted to mimic human rhythm without actually being human. The message had no username attached. No handle. No PGP signature. Just raw text in a mailbox that shouldn't have accepted unsigned messages. That alone should have been my first warning. I need you to locate something, the message read. Not a person, not an asset, a signal. A signal, out of everything I'd expected. Databases, accounts, infrastructure audits, covert extraction of information. This was the last thing I thought they'd ask for. A signal meant radio frequencies, or beacon traces, or anomalous packets floating through the network. A signal meant something drifting. Something not meant to be found. Something that had slipped somewhere it shouldn't be. I typed back, define the source. 3 dots appeared in the chat. 3 dots in a client interface that didn't support typing indicators. Then the message arrived, it's easier to show you. An attachment popped up, a compressed file, heavily encrypted but with a cipher structure I didn't recognize. Normally I never touch unknown attachments. Not even in sandboxed containers, but the payment was already in my wallet, and something about the encryption intrigued me. It wasn't standard RSA, ECC, or even the more experimental lattices I'd tinkered with. It was like the file header shifted every time I scanned it. A dynamic cipher, something someone built themselves. I loaded it into a sealed VM with no outbound permissions, no bridge networking, no hardware access. Even then, I hovered my cursor over the file for a moment, debating if any amount of crypto was worth the risk. But I opened it anyway. Inside, I found a short audio clip, just 7 seconds long. 7 seconds that changed everything. At first, all I heard was static, white noise, the kind of interference you get on cheap radios or corrupted WAV files. But as I scrubbed through, I noticed a pitch distortion, too precise to be random. Hidden under the static, there was a pattern, a pulse, something intentional. I ran a spectral analysis. The graph lit up with clusters that formed shapes. Shapes that didn't belong in audio frequencies. Shapes that looked disturbingly like encoded characters, but not in any alphabet I recognized. They weren't letters. They weren't numbers. They looked alive. I replayed the audio with filters, isolating the lower bands. And that's when I heard it. A faint hum, rhythmic, like someone breathing. Not literally breathing, but mimicking the cadence. Like a machine trying to imitate something biological. I froze. My first thought was that it was some experimental AI signature, something scraped from the darknet labs where rogue engineers play God with systems that should never connect to the open web. But I'd heard AI artifacts before. This wasn't that. This sounded like something trying to communicate but failing to fit itself into our methods of communication. Before I could analyze further, another message arrived. "Can you trace it?" There was no time to overthink. I typed, "Source uncertain, need metadata." The response, "There is no metadata, that's why we hired you." A chill went down my spine. Signals always have metadata. Even corrupted ones, even erased ones. Something always remains. Timestamps, compression hints, packet fragments, carrier waves. Something. So I scanned the file again. Nothing. Not even a bit of identifying noise. The file was a perfect void surrounding the signal. Whoever made it didn't just scrub the metadata. They removed the substrate the metadata would normally cling to. It was like the audio clip existed alone, detached from physical reality. At this point, I wanted to exit the job, refund the crypto, pretend the message never reached me. But I'd already taken steps, opened the file, analyzed the waveform. If the client was watching, and I realized they probably were, backing out wasn't an option. People on the deep web don't send large sums of crypto for nothing. They don't gamble, they calculate. And I was now part of their calculation. I started running pattern-matching scripts. I let neural nets chew on the waveform. I compared it to oceanic sonar, electric interference, satellite drift, magnetic anomalies, urban RF noise, deep space transmissions. Nothing matched. But one detail stood out. The irregular hum I thought sounded like breathing. It wasn't irregular. It repeated every 4.3 seconds. Exactly. Naturally occurring signals don't repeat like that. Machines do. Or something trying to behave like one. As I pushed deeper into the analysis, the VM froze for a split second. Not crashed. Paused. Then resumed like nothing happened. That shouldn't happen in an isolated container. Something inside the audio file had executed, without executing code. That terrified me more than any malware. I wiped the VM instantly, but the moment I did, I received another message. "Don't delete the environment again." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. There was no way the sender could know what I had done. The container wasn't connected. The host firewall blocked every outbound path. I triple-checked. The client sent another line. "The signal is active when observed. That's why you must not erase it. Active when observed. Observed. Not executed. Not accessed. Observed. Quantum terminology, or something close to it. But that didn't make sense. Quantum states don't propagate through encrypted audio clips. At least they weren't supposed to." I wrote, "What exactly am I tracing?" This time the response lagged. A full minute. 2 minutes. Then, "You are tracing the origin of something that should not exist." That was enough to push anyone with sense away from the job. But a new file arrived. Raw packet captures. Fragmented network traces that showed short bursts of activity across different nodes, all containing partial bits of the same waveform, embedded in previous samples. The signal wasn't just in the audio clip. It was appearing in places across the network spontaneously, but only in packets that had no sender, no destination, no route history. Like the packets generated themselves. I mapped the timestamps. They formed a pattern, a curved line on a global projection, an arc pointing toward the Pacific, but not toward any populated region, more like a blank stretch of ocean. But just before I could begin triangulating, my environment glitched again. This time my physical machine. A soft flicker, a momentary lag. My cursor moved a millimeter on its own. Just a tiny nudge, almost imperceptible, but I noticed. The client messaged instantly. "Do not engage with the signal directly, indirect analysis only." I wasn't breathing. I didn't even know how the hell they knew what happened to my cursor. I typed, "Tell me what this is." No answer. I typed again. "If you want me to trace it, I need context." Still nothing. Then the chat window scrolled automatically. Not because of a new message, It scrolled up through the client's previous lines, moving on its own, highlighting specific fragments. Signal, active when observed, origin. Then it stopped. For a moment I wondered if the client was still there, or if something else was answering for them, but a new message finally appeared. Whatever you think it is, it's not that. Continue the trace. I leaned back in my chair and considered disconnecting the entire system from power. But before I could decide, I noticed something strange in the last packet capture. Something I hadn't seen before. A timestamp that didn't match any time zone. Not UTC, not system time, not Unix epoch. It was counting down, a timer, and it was decreasing each time the signal appeared in the packets. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just broadcasting. It was approaching something, or waiting for something, and I was the one they hired to find out what. I isolated the countdown and ran projections. Based on its decay rate, it would hit 0 in a little under 48 hours. The client hadn't mentioned a deadline, but clearly the job had one. That's when the final message of the night came through. You are no longer tracing the signal. The signal is now tracing you. I didn't sleep after that. I didn't even shut down my rig. I just sat there listening to the silent hum of my hardware, wondering if that 7-second audio clip had already done something irreversible to my system. Or to me. I didn't want to believe the client's last message. The signal is now tracing you. It sounded like a threat, or a psychological tactic meant to keep me locked into the job. But the more I reviewed the packet captures, the more the data pointed to something I couldn't rationalize. The signal wasn't just appearing across the network. It was converging, tightening, folding itself closer to a single point with each new iteration. And that point, according to the latest triangulation model, wasn't the Pacific anymore. It was my region. Not my exact coordinates, but close enough that if the signal continued collapsing, it would hit within a 2-kilometer radius of my location. That wasn't just statistically improbable. It was targeted, intentional, the kind of pattern you only see in tracking algorithms. But the signal wasn't behaving like code. It was behaving like something searching. By the next morning, the countdown had dropped from 48 hours to 34. The waveform had shifted slightly, like it was reacting to something. The rhythmic hum, the one that felt like simulated breathing, had deepened, slowed, like the signal was gathering strength or syncing itself to something nearby. I needed answers, and the client still wasn't talking, so I did something reckless. I reached out to another operator on a private enclave I trusted, someone who specialized in RF anomalies, off-grid comms, and encrypted underground broadcasts. A real ghost in the circuitry. If anyone had seen anything like this before, it was him. I messaged him one line. Have you ever encountered a dynamic signal with no metadata, replicating across nodes? His response came back faster than I expected. Where did you see it? I hesitated. I wasn't about to tell him the full truth, but I described the basics, the waveform, the countdown, the strange packet drift, the hum. He sent one message back. Shut your system down. I told him it was too late for that. The payment, the files, the client, they were all tied together. If I ran now, I'd lose more than just crypto. I'd lose my reputation, my security, my contacts. He replied, it's not about reputation. Shut your system down. Then he went offline, not idle, not busy, completely gone. His node went dark, his mailbox unreachable, his connections severed. I tried pinging his encrypted relay. Nothing. This guy had been online consistently for years, running redundant failover servers across 4 continents. He didn't just disappear, unless something made him. I glanced at the countdown again. 33 hours left. The waveform analysis had finished running one of my slower, deeper scripts. It output a result I hadn't seen before. A pattern match at 21%. Not identical, but similar enough to flag. Deep space anomalies. Specifically, unexplained narrowband bursts recorded by experimental listening stations. Bursts with no known origin, no known natural cause, no planet, no comet, No satellite responsible. But those anomalies never repeated. And this signal wasn't coming from space anymore. It was here. I replayed the 7-second clip again just to test something. The hum was deeper now, the cadence slower. This wasn't possible. The audio file was static. Couldn't change unless someone altered it server-side, unless the signal wasn't inside the file. But reacting to it changed the file. I stopped playback immediately. I ripped the virtual cable, killed the process, sealed the audio behind a write-protected container. But the damage was done. My analysis log showed something I hadn't authorized. The waveform had self-modified. The harmonic layer had rewritten a portion of its lower band like it recognized it had been heard. The client messaged me for the first time in 12 hours. Do not play the signal again. It adapts. My stomach twisted. Tell me what it is. Silence. Then, it is something we discovered by accident. I waited. It interacts with observers. Your analysis strengthens it. I typed, strengthens it how? This time, the pause lasted almost a full minute. By helping it locate you. My hands went cold. I asked the obvious question. Why hire me then? Their answer wasn't comforting. Because we needed someone it would try to follow. That's when I realized the truth. I wasn't hired to trace the signal. I was hired to lure it. They needed a target skilled enough to detect it, but unaware enough to engage with it directly. Someone curious. Someone who wouldn't ignore a high crypto payment. Someone like me. I felt sick. The countdown hit 31 hours. The signal's convergence arc had shrunk again. This time it pointed directly to my district. I started isolating network paths manually. Even on wired connections, I saw jumps, microsecond spikes, like something was passing through layers of the stack that shouldn't exist. Hidden latency, packets that didn't register on any interface but showed up on shadows of logs. Ghost entries. That's when something happened that made my blood freeze. My monitor flickered again, but this time, instead of a cursor movement or a lag spike, I heard a faint sound behind me, a soft hum, the same cadence as the signal. I spun around, heart hammering. Nothing was there. But the hum wasn't coming from my speakers. It wasn't coming from my PC. It was coming from the air itself, vibrating the room at a frequency too low for comfort. I grabbed my portable spectrum analyzer and swept the room. A spike appeared, on the same frequency as the modified waveform. It wasn't digital anymore. It had leaked into physical space. My first instinct was to flee. Grab my gear, smash the drives, leave the apartment, cut every tie to this job. But something told me that wouldn't change anything. This wasn't malware. It wasn't a tracking bot. It wasn't a system exploit. It was a signal that behaved like it could exist wherever it wanted to. I finally confronted the client with the only question that mattered. What happens when the countdown reaches 0? Their reply was immediate. Too immediate. We don't know. It has never happened. I tried one last push. What does the signal want? Another long pause, then, contact. That one word chilled me to the core. Contact, not connection, not execution, not infection. Contact, like it was trying to reach something or someone. My packet logs suddenly refreshed themselves without my command. New packets appeared, far more frequent than before. The convergence arc had moved again, faster this time. The decay rate of the countdown accelerated. 30 hours, 29, 28. Something triggered a cascade. The client messaged me again, but the tone had shifted. You need to stop analyzing the waveform. Every interaction accelerates it. I wrote back, then why send it to me? No answer. Instead, a new file arrived. Not encrypted this time. Plain text, a location, coordinates in the Pacific, the same origin point I'd detected earlier, before the convergence shifted toward my region. But now, the coordinates included depth markers, below sea level, very far below, at a depth where no human could operate. I asked him what is at that location. The reply came, we don't know. That is what you were originally hired to find out. Originally, meaning the job had changed. I realized then that the client had lost control of whatever this signal was long before they contacted me. They weren't experimenting. They were containing. And they failed. I checked the countdown again. The numbers were flickering now, like the timer itself was destabilizing. 26 hours left. But the convergence arc no longer pointed to my region. It pointed to my apartment. A direct lock. My cameras flickered. My router lights dimmed. My peripherals reset for a moment before coming back online. My air felt heavier, like pressure was building in the room. The hum deepened, louder now. Not deafening, but invasive, like it was inside my bones. I disconnected the PC from power entirely, expecting everything to go dead. But the hum didn't stop, and the convergence continued. Whatever this signal was, it didn't need my system anymore. It had found me. That's when my offline laptop, one with no Wi-Fi card, no Bluetooth, no Ethernet port, nothing, lit up. A line of text appeared on the dark screen. "I found you." The message wasn't sent by the client. The client messaged me seconds later. "Do not respond to it." I didn't. I couldn't. I was frozen. The hum grew louder, all frequencies rising, converging into something that felt almost like a voice just beyond interpretation. Intentional, structured, directed at me. The countdown hit 25 hours and stopped. Just stopped. Time froze. Logs ceased updating. Packets stopped drifting. No movement, no decay. It had reached zero early, and then all the systems around me, all the screens in my apartment, displayed the same message at once. Now we talk. The lights cut out. The hum stopped. Everything went still. I don't remember how long I sat there, or whether time actually passed. When the lights finally came back on, all my systems were dead except for the one offline laptop, still displaying the same message. The client sent one final message. "Payment transferred, contract complete, do not attempt further contact." Then they vanished. Their address, mailbox, enclave, gone. Wiped off the network like they never existed. I spent the next week scrubbing my systems, rebuilding my environment from scratch, replacing every cable, every device, every drive. Even after all that, the offline laptop still wouldn't boot into anything except that message. I don't know what the signal was. I don't know what it wanted. I don't know why it chose me. But I know one thing. Whatever contacted me that day wasn't a client. And it wasn't human. And some nights, when the city goes quiet, I still hear that low hum. Not loud, not threatening, just waiting. Because whatever I traced is still out there, and it knows exactly where I am. Thank you for watching this far. Your time means more than you realize, especially for stories like this that go far deeper than a simple job gone wrong. If you want more deep web stories told directly by someone who lived them, consider subscribing and sharing the video with someone who enjoys the hidden side of the internet.